Hey guys, Lightane here. With the huge popularity of Steins Gate, both as a visual novel and as an anime, a sequel was bound to follow. So let's see if Steins Gate Zero, the anime, is worth it. The Steins Gate Zero anime was released in 2018, 7 years after the first one, and once again made by White Fox. Now, I said it was a sequel in the intro, but that's not quite true. This is a prequel, sequel, and kind of a midquel to the original Steins Gate. Needless to say, if you have not seen the first anime or played the first game, there will be spoilers for that here, so really do not continue if you haven't seen the end of Steins Gate. Last chance, okay, here we go. So as you may remember, at the end of Steins Gate, Ocarina goes back in time to save Kurisu, but ends up accidentally killing her. He then travels to the present and gets a nostalgia drive from the future saying he needs to deceive the world and does so. But who was that Ocarina in the video, and how did he know what to do? Once again, this is based on the visual novel of the same name, but has been altered and adapted quite dramatically in order to fit the anime format. In preparation for this anime, a special episode was released as an OVA and a special feature on the original Steins Gate Blu-ray. It is the first episode of the series titled 23 Beta. It shows an alternate take on the episode 23 where many small things have changed, resulting in a very different outcome. Ocarina goes back in time, kills Kirisu, and returns to the present a broken man. But this time, there is no D-mail, there is no slap to get him to his senses, and there's no nostalgia drive. There is no hope. So he gives up, and he breaks down. Seeing this honestly hurts. This utter defeat is a crazy way to kickstart a new season. Now we have to follow a broken man and see how he became the person that could send that nostalgia drive. This anime is quite different to the visual novel it is based on. While it is still the same story, there are many new scenes, a lot of scenes got cut, and some things are put in a different order. The biggest change the anime made was tell a linear story. The visual novel has branching paths and many different endings, but this anime kind of fused them all together in order to create one fully coherent story. Let's start with the animation and how clean and nice it is. It was done by the same studio, White Fox, but the production value has certainly increased. While the first season is good, I thought it was a little bit on the lower quality side. They also put more effort into the actual animation too. There are less static scenes and more movement amongst the characters. In every way, the quality has been improved here. I like that there were less strange cutaway shots to random things and more focus on the characters this time. Still, a few odd things do happen, and there's a lot of great small details as well, like Maho having different shoes on because she's lazy in her appearance. I was also really impressed with how they did Amadeus. It being an AI program, they have her animated in CG using a different frame rate from the rest of the show, making her move in this strange and slightly jarring way and makes her feel less real. It was a great touch. The quality for the voice acting has improved as well. Maybe it's just that everybody has more practice under the belt because it's been quite a few years from the first season, but both the English and Japanese voice casts are great. The same voice actors return to play these characters, and Daru has his visual novel voice this time around instead of his season 1 voice. I don't know why they keep changing his voice. Once again, I watched most of this show in English for the novelty of it, okay? Don't hate me, sub fans. I just like listening to things in English, okay? My main problem with season 1's English dub was J. Michael Tatum's take on Hoenn Kyoma, because he just wasn't as good at doing that persona. But season 2 doesn't have a lot of that persona in it. That makes Tatum's voice stand out more, as he does a phenomenal job at the more serious Ocarina. Out of all the voice casts, the only one I found a little bit strange was Suzuha. It's the same voice actress, but she puts on a slightly husky voice for this rendition of Suzuha. Maybe it's due to the war background or something, I don't know. It was a little jarring when I first started watching it because I watched it directly after the first season, but I got used to it pretty quickly. With everything else being upgraded, they also put some effort into the story. Like I mentioned, the visual novel is a non-linear experience and has those different endings and stories, but this is a single straight story. It was really intriguing to me going into this because I had played the visual novel first and I had no idea how they were going to pull all of these things together to create a coherent story. Which elements would they pull from, or which storylines would they drop? I just had no idea how they were going to connect it all. Compared to Season 1, which followed the visual novel to a T except for the additional endings, Season 0 had a lot of effort put into it. And I would say for the most part, it really worked. Aside from 23 Beta, the official start of the season has a more upbeat note with some familiar faces and some extra scenes. One of which is a quick scene of how Daru met Yuki, and it's actually very similar to the game Linear Bounded Phenagram, which is really cool. I found the start of the anime to be better than the novel at setting up the characters and even the stakes of the story. Plus, having that crazy trauma flash from Okurin at the start was great at bringing you into his psyche and all the trauma that he is going through. Okurin then goes to a seminar and learns about an AI and how Amadeus has Kirisu's memories. From here we follow all different stories, from Suzuha trying to find a girl that went missing, the different governments playing for the time machine power and its data, and even some experimental time machine antics. It tells a very long and mostly complete story. There are a few dropped plot points by the end and parts that aren't quite resolved, and it's honestly hard to know which ones are which as it melds with my memory of the visual novel, so maybe there are more or less than there are, I'm not sure. As they tried to pull the different stories together, some of the contradictions in the different endings had to have some work added to them, like who is inside the motorcycle suit, and they try and explain some of these, but some of them are not handled super well. One that really annoyed me was the war world line. It comes in episode 4, much earlier than in the game, and it lasts only a very brief time. It literally comes out of nowhere and is never given an explanation or touched upon again. Even with all these changes, I found the story to be very compelling. The new scenes, like more time spent back in the Alpha World line, were handled fantastically. They also have more cutaways to other characters and what they are doing as well. And I didn't know what was going to happen either, unlike the first season, so even people that have played the visual novel will try and guess what's going on. I loved all the extra time in the first half spent with Amadeus and developing her and Okurin's relationship. The talks about do AIs possess souls and the questions of if she is real. If I was to try and sum it up, I think they did the character interactions and emotions way better in the anime by adding these little scenes. Seeing Daru actually go on his dates is great and awkward and funny. I like that they expanded upon future Ruka. Yep, still Ruka for consistency, I guess, who wasn't really in the visual novel. So while all these little inclusions are great, the major plot does suffer a little bit from this fusion. On one side, bad guys are just offhandedly revealed and dealt with, but kind of not really. They're handled very sloppily. Also, the main villain gets a slightly easier to follow motive, but many story elements were changed around them, so it's not the same as the novel. Some endings were dropped entirely, which is a shame, but very understandable. They did have a limited number of episodes to tell this story. So I'm going to get into some heavy spoilers for the show and I guess the visual novel, so jump to this world line if you just want to see the final conclusion, otherwise stick around. First off, I loved the extended Alpha Worldline scenes. Seeing Okurin back in the world where he lost Mayuri and the crushing weight of it shows he is partially wrong in letting Kirisu die. He can't handle either worldline, honestly, and he needs to find another one. I also liked how they extended the future part of the story. The reason why Okurin gets to the future though was horrible. The time leap malfunctioned, but it kept his mind... the visual novel has him properly download his brain just in case, but whatever, he gets there, that's the main point. But that extra time in the future really helped set up the stakes for Okurin and let him see what he had to fight for. Also, Ruka is super badass here, and something odd happened to me. Ruka's ending in the Steins Gate visual novel made me cry, and the show just made me not care about them. Whilst Ruka's end in Zero novel had such little impact I wasn't really caring, but the show made me really sad and ready to cry. So yeah, Ruka's story is so inconsistent. Anyways, the show also fixes up a few small little plot holes like Ocarina being tortured and his mind being destroyed, but having to time leap all the way to the past. How does he leap through all that torture? Well, a nice little action scene, that's how. But for every plot hole it kinda smooths over, it leaves many in its wake. Like Reyes, she is handled so poorly, and then just discarded at the end. I thought they would have to deal with her or something, but nope. Which leads to the part when Ocarina finally gets back to the present and becomes Hoenn Keoma once again. I loved this scene, brilliantly executed and worth the season-long build-up. In the game, he adopts that persona a few times, but the anime reserves it until right at the end, and it earns it. Daru and Maho's face in this scene is absolutely hilarious. I also really like the battle on the radio tower building. Kagari is so cool. I mean, she was described as being cool and crazy, but seeing it was absolutely nuts. She karate chops a dude's head off, like what the hell? I'm glad they changed her storyline from the game. She was an inconsistent character that wasn't very good. Here, she has a clear story, and due to a dropped plot, it's more cohesive. Then we have the ending of the whole thing. It kind of comes out of nowhere, but being linear, it kind of makes more sense. This Ocarina was probably the same one as the one that we have been following for the entire show, just 15 years later, recording the nostalgia drive and setting up him and Daru's plan. It even explains the odd appearance of Kagari there, that the game fails to do so. The only thing I didn't like was, where did he get the Deceive the World D-Ride from? I don't remember them sending it in the show, and it's a very important part in order to change his character in order to get to the world line where Ocarina can deceive the world. It's such a minor plot convenience, but it's kind of annoying that they didn't include it anywhere. We even have a bonus scene with Ocarina saving Suzuha and Mayuri, which was great and adds to that weird 70 million years ago thing. This leads to an interesting conundrum. The anime adds some scenes in order to make the story flow better and address some of the plot holes and questions, but the show isn't canon to the games. In a perfect world, they could fuse together and make a much better Zero. Maybe an Elite version? Yeah, Steins Gate Zero Elite has been confirmed and it's coming out one day. In my opinion, Steins Gate Zero is worth it. As an amazing follow-up to the first anime, the animation, voice acting, music, and Foley have all had a massive improvement over the first season. The story is easy to follow, being a linear one compared to the game, but it comes with a few little problems. The story is not as tight and has some plot holes and dropped plot points. While still enjoyable, it doesn't feel complete, but neither did the game either. These two work well to complement each other, so I would recommend after finishing the anime, you go and play the game for the extra story details. So guys, tell me what you thought about Steins Gate Zero. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you play the game first or watch the anime first? Because when I watched the anime, I had such a crazy wild ride because I had no idea what was going to happen even though I'd played the game. It was a very entertaining ride. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!